Noting the hour in the presence of a quorum, I call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Seeing no citizens present to make comments, I assume there are no citizens' concerns to be presented at this time. So I'd like to invite Ellie Anderson up to discuss the fiscal year 2024 second quarter results.
Good evening. I'm Mary Ann Fleckner, Director of Administration and Finance. I'm here with my colleague, Ellie Anderson, Financial Solutions Analyst. We're here to present the Q2 quarterly report. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Ellie. In summary, before doing that, we'll be going over the balances of our general fund revenues, the percent collected thus far for Q2 on all three categories, which will include the taxes, the state aid, and the local receipts. Overall, we're doing well, and again, Ellie's going to go into more detail. On the expenditure side, both general fund and also our 6 enterprise funds. Again, for the most part, we're doing well, and with that summary, I'm going to hand it over to Ellie for more detail. Thank you.
Good evening. So just as a reminder, the report that informs this presentation as well as the presentation will be posted under the budget heading of the town website tomorrow or the day after. So on this slide, we have the general fund revenues to date. As you can see through Q2, we're just under 50% collected with real estate tax or property taxes, exactly where we would like to be. State aid has come in just over 58%. Local receipts are coming in around 40%. And in total, we've collected $55,600,000 in revenue, which means that for the fiscal year, we're 49.14% collected and 50% of the way through the year. So right on target. When it comes to expenditures, through December 31st, we've spent just over $20 million, which means we're just under 54% expended. As we know, the Middlesex County retirement and OPEB assessments are paid out on July 1st, which skews our percent expended to the slightly higher side. We have 5 enterprise funds. We'll go through the finances of each of those. The Septage Enterprise Fund has an annual budget of $164,059. It, in fiscal year 2024, used just over $14,000 from retained earnings. Year to date, it's collected about 38.32% of that target and spent 34.85% of its budget. Yes?
Septage is septic tank, et cetera, right? The
yes.
permits. So it makes sense that it would not have, you don't do it, I presume, much in the winter. It would be a...
That's right. It does tend to be seasonal with the bulk of the activity happening in the spring.
So it's not a concern?
It's something we're monitoring closely, but we are expecting an increase in revenue once the temperatures increase.
Thank you.
I can just add one more piece to that, to what Ellie was mentioning, is that we also are working with the acting health director, Matt Dow, on postcards. So to your question and to Ellie's point, is working with them on ensuring that postcards go out right previous to like the season of when something's going to happen.
I will just also note that we have received our free cash certification for fiscal year 2024. So all of the balances at the bottom of the enterprise funds are the most recent retained earnings certifications. So transfer station has an annual budget of just under $765,000. It also has appropriation from retained earnings. And year to date, it's about 82% collected and just under 40% expended. We did look into this a little bit and reached out to the highway department, and apparently revenue from scrap metal and recycling has been quite good this fiscal year. And there's also been an increase in sticker sales, which has led to higher than expected revenues at this point. Moving on to Sewer Enterprise Fund, it has an annual budget of just under 2.4 million. It has an appropriation from retained earnings as well as a transfer from the Sewer Stabilization Fund to pay for fire suppression upgrades. Through December 31st, it's about just over 50% collected and around 30% expended. The Ambulance Enterprise Fund has an annual budget of just over 1.8 million. It receives a general fund subsidy as well as an appropriation from retained earnings. It's currently just under 59% collected and just under 50% expended. And then the Transportation Enterprise Fund also received a general fund subsidy in fiscal 2024, as well as an appropriation from retained earnings. It's currently 43% collected and just under 28% expended through the end of December. So that's everything. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Jason?
So there was conversation last night at the select board meeting about reducing either the transportation or the ambulance enterprise fund by $100,000 in the case of a B budget. Looks like the ambulance enterprise fund has more than $100,000 in its free cash, but the transportation does not. Does that mean that if $100,000 was taken from the transportation fund, that it would immediately cause a reduction in service, or and vice versa? Would the ambulance enterprise fund just be able to absorb a $100,000 loss from free cash?
I think that once that determination is made about where the reductions are coming from, if it's from either fund or a combination of both, we'll of course have to reevaluate the budgets for fiscal year 2025 with John to see exactly what that impact would be. I don't know offhand what the impact would be on either fund and if it would lead to service reductions.
And also, the select board voted at their last meeting, previous to last night, the ambulance enterprise fund, the fees increased as effective February 1st, 2024. We went with a 400% over Medicare rate.
Okay. And then my last question is, I wasn't surprised to see that the transfer station was running faster than 50% because all the sticker fees happened in September. You mentioned that scrap metal and recycling is better. What percentage over the, was it a significant difference compared to sticker fees, or is that fund going to absolutely well overrun its projected revenue for next year, which is all to the good, and I'm happy about it. But how much of that 80% was because of the seasonality of the stickers versus actually having upside potential as a result of recycling?
So we'd have to look into it further to kind of crunch some numbers and see proportionally how much of it is coming from which revenue category. I will say that when I updated all the figures for this report, the percent collected caused pause, and we looked into it, and it seemed that compared to previous years, the scrap metal, the bulky waste, like if you're going to get rid of your couch, that comes with a cost. And the recycling was considerably higher than what we received at this time last year. And then the stickers were a little bit higher. So I think it's a combination of both, but what part of the increase belongs to which category would take a little bit more analysis.
Anyone else? It occurs to me that every time you do one of these presentations, I try to remember whether the numbers are in line with what we've had either the previous year or a few previous years. It'd be great if you could stick that on. Because I know a lot of these, like you said, the OPEB and the Middlesex retirement go out at the beginning of the year, so I know to not just expect everything to be at 50%, but if you could stick a reminder on there of what's common, it would be great.
I can say, at least for the general fund, because we had this exact same question, the collections and the local receipts and the expenditures are almost exactly where we were at this time last year, and there would be more variability with the enterprise funds, but it is a good note to include in future presentations.
Thank you. think that's it for us. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the ALG agenda item. We went to ALG and presented that we were in support of the idea of a $6.6 million override to cover the budgets as presented in the ALG model, and there was confusion coming out of that. What split we wanted, we're saying that should be between the two entities. And I think my take on it was, we were saying, loosely, the budget numbers like that allocation is good, but because we weren't willing to approve, they wanted us to agree on the actual budget numbers. And we didn't think that was appropriate for the Finance Committee to have done without having details of all the budgets, especially not having sat through the line item school budgets. So, yeah. Yeah, we said no.
Thank you.
But the select board in last night's meeting, Dean Charter was uncomfortable with agreeing to that override number without knowing what the split between the two entities was that we were proposing. So if we have any idea how we want to do it. I've looked at please go ahead.
So I guess theoretically, in my mind, I was thinking that the split was decided by the two budgets that were presented, and that's how we got to the 6.6. So what is there to consider, I suppose is the question. Go ahead.
So I would like to make it very clear that there is a very strong difference between what we have to settle for an override number and the budgets that we approve. We have to come up with an override number well in advance, well a month in advance of settling on the budgets, because the select board has to get those numbers to the clerk for publication on the ballot that happens on April 30th. So we were being told we had to give them a number, we had to give them a consensus number, which we did. That doesn't mean that we have signed off on their budgets. So I believe that each budget needs to stand on its own merits. If one budget, if we find room in one budget for the number to go down, I don't care what the split is. I care that the budget stands on its own merit. If either of these budgets, if we are able to find savings in either of these budgets, then that would leave money in unused tax levy capacity, which is exactly where it should be. I believe that there are multiple kinds of reserves, and reserve is a word we use very, very loosely, unfortunately, but one type of reserve is the unused tax levy. It's my favorite type of reserve because it's the money actually stays in the taxpayer's pocket until it's fully appropriated. So I really don't care if the select board wants us to give a hard and fast proportionality, because I don't, because each budget has to stand on its own. And when we go back to the select board and have a conversation about maybe we need to use a little more money out of free cash because it's absolutely inappropriate to raise taxes 10% when you're sitting above the floor of free cash. When we go back to the school and say, actually, we believe we found some savings here that we need you to take into consideration, those budgets will be brought down appropriately to the level that we all agree on in ALG consensus. I do not understand at all where they got theirs, therefore I want mine definition of this percentage split between the two entities should be. We were forced to come to a top level number. We did. Now we're going to give advice and make recommendations on the budgets. Where the budgets sit is, at the end of the day, will determine the amount of unused tax levy capacity that's left. Does that make sense? Mr. Nolde, do you think that I'm off base in what I just said?
Well, no, and that's in line with what I was thinking we had all kind of, not decided, but agreed to at our last meeting, which was.
This is what we've done every previous year. What we're trying to get up is budget trend file that Mr. Martin had actually shared with us a while back, showing the percentages of that went to town, school, and Minuteman of the budget year over year, and they stay around the same. It's usually around 34% for the town and 60 some odd % for the school. not. There has been a decline in percent for the town. There has also been an increase in the percent for the school. It has not been significant, especially if you take the excluded debt out of it. They stay very close to what they were before. We can have a discussion whether we think excluded debt should be a part of this, but regardless, they're all in the ballpark of the 33-66 split that I was told when I joined was the fair split between the entities. So I personally am not concerned about where these individual numbers are. Not happening? Okay, Christine's trying to get the file up so we can show you. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah.
Greg?
I agree with the traditional approach of saying, let's see the budget, then we can approve it. That makes sense. I personally disagree with let's spend down free cash.
Hold on, we're not there yet.
We're not?
No, we're just talking about the split.
Well, okay, fine. But does that impact the split? Yeah.
Okay.
So the issue is we're going to have a number of these gnarly things to deal with. And my guess is we may not agree. That's okay. We're not supposed to all agree. We need to come to our own consensus so that we can provide FinCom advice. And I suspect that if that requires an extra meeting.
But we don't need consensus. ALG needs consensus. We just need a majority vote.
We just need a majority vote, okay. Then I guess that's my 2 cents for now.
So your point on the free cash is that that changes the percentage because free cash is only spent for the town?
Free cash traditionally has been used for the unexpected. The unexpected happens every year. And we were just getting the Q2 numbers. The good news is most of the numbers are either on track or, oh my goodness, we've got a couple upsides, you know. Guess what? Q3, there could be some surprising downsides. We don't know. But I believe the tradition has been a 3% number.
Well, actually, we flipped around
We did?
how free cash is used. It used to be that
Okay,
what would have been in your description of free cash used for unexpected things would have just affected the turnback.
okay,
And what we flipped it around to say is, actually, let's, when we started the process, look at the pre-turnback number, not make an expectation of what the turnback will be. So the current policy is to only use it for one-time operating items. What Jason had proposed was using it, potentially digging into it further for this difficult time. And would you like to explain that further, Jason?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have two very separate thoughts about free cash. The first is in the case of a failed override. In the case of a failed override, then I'm not saying everything goes out the window and we spend whatever we can get our hands on. But I am saying that free cash ends up being, I'm more sympathetic to the spending of free cash in the instance of a failed override. That said, I also think that our free cash has gone up for the last couple of years. Maybe that's fantastic management on the town manager's part. Maybe that's an unexpected upside in revenues from state aid or local receipts or whatever. Or maybe it could be something as simple as we have 21 unfilled positions that we've been budgeting for, and that makes it very easy to have turnbacks at the end of the year. So my opinion is when going into an override year, I think it's exceptionally poor politics to ask for a 10% increase in taxation when you're sitting on 4 or 5% reserves. So while I have no intention of authorizing more expenditure, I believe one of the select board members last night said, well, Finance Committee said they're willing to spend more money. That is absolutely not what I said. What I said was that before we go and ask for an override, we make sure we're at the floor of our free cash. So even though I am on board with a $6.6 million override, because I think that's a number that we've all come to via consensus and is safe moving, hopefully is safe moving forward. Hopefully we get this passed. But what I'm working on now is bringing down the taxation that hits the tax bill. So whether that be by wringing out every last dollar that I possibly can out of the budgets, or by bringing the free cash down to the floor in a reasonable manner, or by using more money out of the enterprise funds, or by using more money out of these 3 accounts that I'd never heard of before until the question and answer period with the town manager a month or so ago. My goal now is to try and smooth out what the tax bill that goes to the citizenry this coming year. So no, I did not recommend spending more money. I recommended figuring out a way to lower the tax bill while still getting the things that have been deemed to be 100% necessary / causing of pain.
Part of, for me, a little bit of the confusion came was the idea that the A budget from the town has absolutely necessary capital items in it. And the B budget cuts down those items from free cash spending. And so my brain says if they're absolutely vital, they should be a part of it. I understand that Mr. Mangiarotti lowered it so that the percentage of the budget didn't go above 3%. So he lowered the amount of free cash used also, but it was a bizarre situation in which Jason and I were arguing for spending more free cash. And no one else at ALG thought that.
Using more free cash, but not spending more overall.
Yes,
I would like to make
Well, and I
that
think that was-
crystal clear. 'Cause
that was what did not-
come through last night.
that did not come through in ALG either. But that said, I think we all agree, and I'm happy to say that every other entity said, of course you shouldn't spend free cash on operating. That message got through at some point.
That is good.
Greg.
So then, now that that's been clarified, and I'm hopefully getting up to speed as fast as I can, let's then tackle the elephant in the room, which is the, what is it? 60 some odd percent, 30 some odd percent split between the town and the schools. Is that still up for debate?
It's up for discussion. We need to decide how important we think that is. This is something that I've heard some strong sentiments from the select board on. It's not anything we have ever particularly paid attention to in any of the budget cycles I've been through. The numbers have just worked out however they worked out. Do you want to go ahead, or do you want to look at the numbers here?
Can I just say one thing on that?
Please.
Thank you. The only time that the 1/3, 2/3 split sort of has become shorthand is when we're, in the past, when we're down to that last $200,000 or $300,000 at the very end of the year, and we're just trying to get things done. And we're not talking about anything major. We're not talking about an override. We're just talking about getting through that last little bit. That's when we sort of go, we got this issue, 2/3 of it's your problem, 1/3 of it's your problem. I would never say during an override year that one entity gets to have 1/3 and the other entity gets to have 2/3. In an override year, I absolutely, and I would love the sense of the table if we could, Madam Chair. I would absolutely say that in an override year, your budget absolutely has to stand on its own, because where the pain level hits for the municipal side may not be where the pain level hits for the school side. And arbitrarily say, I want my 1/3 is not, in my opinion, in the best interest of the taxpayers of the town.
I have updated numbers that we can put up also, but the percentages basically play out even with the 2025 numbers. If you look at it, the town gets Article 433 plus Article 5, and Article 6. This is all including the debt service. We could have an interesting discussion about whether debt service should be in there. Prior to 2 years ago, the town's debt service included Parker Damon because of the switch over to the regionalization. And we just bought a big school building, so that skews the debt towards AB more. Do we think that should be in there? As far as I'm concerned, it's just operating. I see you, hold on. Opinions? I personally, when they are telling me we need a new fire station, don't look at it and say, okay, well, the school needs something else. I don't think about it, the large capital purchases we make as being split. To me, it makes sense that you would have some allocation amongst the operating budgets. Adam?
Christie, is the excluded debt part of what we assess?
Yes.
Yes.
Tax bill? Okay.
But we have in the ALG spreadsheet the operatings from Minuteman, AB, and the town. David?
And it does split out the debt from the school. You can see it on the spreadsheet, but it's part of the one assessment that comes from the school district.
That first-year debt service column is not excluded debt. That is the actual cost to the budget for the things in Article 7, which are the capital items that we borrow for.
Yes, but those are part of the town's,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
fall into the
so-
town's operating. I was just trying to use that as,
So they're, on the first year, they're not in the town's operating budget. Second and subsequent years, they are, which is why that column says first-year debt service.
Yep. But the AB assessment and the Minuteman assessment also include that you have on that chart. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a different part up.
Oh, I didn't notice that it had that. Okay. Can I make a point on the percentages?
Please?
So the ALG charge is not to do the 2/3, 1/3. The ALG charge is to decide what the target budget increases are for each entity each year. This year, ALG did not do that, and now frankly, it's too late. Because on the town side, we have to transmit the budget to you next meeting.
Okay. I say that it was entirely correct for our committee to have not presented ALG with targets in this current situation. I don't think the standard ALG process can be applied. I would not take any sort of a stab at the ALG process for how things happened in this year.
Sure, I just wanted to point out that it wasn't a split that ALG has to decide on.
Oh,
ALG has to decide on
What I'm
the
saying-
engine increases.
And that didn't work this year, and for many reasons. And it's not going to. I just want to know what to do with the idea that we're supposed to come back, as I understood it, with some concept of a split. Were we keeping asked for a split both from the school committee member and Mr. Charter wanted a split for the 6.6 million override.
I can't see ALG deciding, making any difference anymore. Because we have to transmit the budget to you at our next meeting, and there isn't.
Okay, but we also need to get an override going.
Yeah, so we decided on that. I'm just saying that if we decide at the next ALG meeting on the budget increase percentages,
We
it'll have no effect.
Oh, and we have no interest in changing it. So if you think that is settled, then I won't be concerned. Thank you. Okay. Does that sound good to everyone else? We're not going to worry about a split, and we're going to do business as usual.
So moved.
Yes, good point. We have not done a formal vote on the override. Having not heard whether school committee response or had an ALG meeting, I don't think we should make any sort of a formal motion on it. Jason?
I don't feel that we need to, I don't feel that we need to vote on the 6.6 million at this time. I think it's going to become much more interesting, and I think it's going to become much more interesting as we try and get closer to town meeting about whether or not we're going to approve each entity's budget.
I think we don't have that, given that we're in discussion just now. But thank you very much. Other ALG items. So this year, we had given a nod to the use of $300,000 from OPEB to cover retiree healthcare payments that the town has to cover. A policy has been brought forward by the town manager to, I think, make that be a standing policy. That is something that I think we should discuss later after we get through all this budget stuff, given that we had approved it for this year, and we can look into that further going forward. I just wanted to bring that up so everyone has that in the back of their heads, unless anyone feels a real need to talk about it now. I see no need. Okay, is there anything else you think we should get into for ALG?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, next up, as I think we've all noticed, there is a great need of public education around what an override is, how Prop 2.5 works, and what has generally led to it. So Christine has done a beautiful slideshow for us, which I will let you take over.
All right, you know I like my slideshows. Unlike my typical slideshows, which don't have a lot of words because we speak to them. It's a visual representation and we speak to them. I wanted this to be something that somebody could take this handout and understand. So, not that it's super wordy, but it's got sentences is what I'm saying, sentences. Obviously, this can be changed. I'm looking for input. We're walking the line. We cannot advocate anything. This is just an instructional on how this process works and what the deal is. So the things covered, your tax bill, revenue, the budget situation, known impacts. I'm going to change that to, I'm going to change that to not known impacts. I'm just going to change it to something less arguable. What is an operational override and what will the tax implications be? So we'll just go through it real quick and then obviously stop me at any point. So the 4 buckets that may make up your tax bill to start. So tax levy, this is just as simplified as I can make it what your tax levy is. So if you read it and it's not clear, please let me know. Greg had a point.
I think I'd put historically roughly 3%. Things have been all kinds of crazy, but that's where we get that number for the new growth.
Sure.
Just because these are people who don't know where any of it's coming from. Jason?
Madam Chair, I would say roughly 0.5%, because
I was wondering about that.
at first view, it looks like it's 2.5% from revenue plus 3% of new growth. Roughly, or say roughly 3% total to drive home the point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Greg?
That's a good point, we understand it.
Yeah, and nobody will care, but I believe Prop 2.5 passed in 1982. And I know that because I was on the Board of Selectmen when it passed.
It voted into law in 80, but it didn't become enacted until 82. According to the Massachusetts State website about it.
Okay.
Sorry, what were you saying, Christine?
I would take away the parentheses and have 2.5% plus new growth equal sign, roughly 3% total.
Sure.
You might want to do the math for them, and do the 0.5%, 2.5 plus half growth. Sorry.
I'm trying not to make it too numbers heavy. You know, it's more about the concept of new growth, with which a lot of people are going to be like, oh, what's that? That's the question, I think, more than how did we get to 3? But
David?
Yeah, can I just commenting on the phrase "can raise," it really should be raises or is raising, because the "can" part is really the levy limit. The tax levy is the amount we are taxing. So I just wanted to me, that's a little confusing. I would have to explain that to people. Right, so whatever words you want to use, but the tax levy is the amount that we are taxing.
So take out the word can and change the word raise to raises.
And just for the record, though,
But no, it's can.
this is from the Massachusetts general law regarding Prop 2.5. It's from their booklet. And the levy limit, as defined, if I remember correctly, is the max that the town could levy as a percentage of total valuation.
So that's really complicated. Let's forget new growth for a second. The levy limit normally is the last year's levy limit times 1.025, right? And so that's the amount they can tax.
Okay.
But the tax levy is the amount we are taxing.
Okay.
I mean, unless you mean the tax limit on this, the levy limit on this slide.
No, I would want to title it that. And I don't want to introduce levy limit and levy ceiling and any of that other. Right. We just use the word tax levy a lot, but a lot of people don't translate that. They don't know exactly what that means. So just trying to break down the things that are in, because people get one bill and that's all they see.
I like it.
Okay, good. All right. This one's a little wordy, but hopefully clear.
Is it worth including the first $100,000 part, the exemption?
It's fine.
Only in that this discussion of taxation and overrides is going to include, what can be done for people who are hit hard by this, and this is one instance where it's built in to the process.
I just assume leave it for the simple reason of the more information, the more accurate information we give, the better, because I can absolutely picture some person taking this presentation, thank you for doing this, taking this presentation, running home and comparing it to their bill and trying to figure out exactly how it's done. And then they're going to go, wait, how come my 1.5% doesn't add up because they haven't done this? So the more accurate we are, even if we're accused of being dry and wordy, I love it. Thank you.
I don't want to be too obtuse here, but I want to play devil's advocate for a moment and point out that you don't have a whole lot of time to explain all of this to people. And the CPA and the other three sources of revenue are kind of like, who cares? The issue we're having is with the Prop 2.5. Would we serve ourselves and the tax base better by just saying, look, here's these other sources of revenue? Forget about those for now. Let's talk about Prop 2.5, and here's how it affects your tax bill, and here's how it's affecting our budgeting process this year.
I would say when we're actually presenting this live, by all means, run through the secondary slides quickly, but have the information in the presentation for when the presentation's published.
Appendix.
Yeah. To me, it's a
Yes.
TMI situation. You give them too much, they're going to start focusing on things that are unimportant and unrelative and maybe lose
All right.
lose track of what's important. I don't know.
Yep. Can we go through the whole thing and then go back to that? Noted and not completely against? Dave wants this in the appendix.
I like this in the appendix.
I think it should be left in because it's also is a big component of our tax bill.
Part of the conversation.
Especially since we've just done Minuteman, North Acton Fire Station, and the Boardwalk campus.
And I think part of the conversation is, it's not just the tax levy.
Right.
So these are also on your bill, regardless.
We also have a debt exclusion override coming soon.
Okay, and then another possible one for the appendix.
So I don't necessarily need them to be in the appendix, but definitely I would, if we're leaving them all in the main body, I
Yeah.
would put the CPA after the debt, because the CPA is simple and a rounding error, whereas the debt exclusion is a significantly higher portion. So do it in order of how it hits people in the wallet, and then go quickly through CPA and sewer betterment. If you don't have a sewer, don't worry about the slide, move on.
Yeah.
So can I ask another clarifying question, which, a follow-up of my previous question, which was I asked if the debt exclusion service is part of the tax levy of the Prop 2.5, and you said yes. And now you're saying that they're separate.
I think
No, I said it's part of the assessment that we
Yes.
receive from the school district. But when you look at the assessment, it is broken up into discrete components. There is an operating component which is limited by 2.5, and then there is the excluded debt that is added on top. That comes to us as a single assessment. So the debt exclusion is involved in the assessment, but does not count against the Prop 2.5 limit.
And the town's portion of excluded debt shows separately on the tax bill?
It doesn't show separately on the tax bill, no. On the tax bill, we only get one number.
So neither of them show separately on the tax bill?
CPA is split out.
Yes, true. You're
Betterment is split out.
And I guess
Liens
I'm
are split out.
And I'm assuming the sewer is, but fortunately, I don't have a sewer hookup.
I think you can combine sewer betterments only made by the people who live in the sewer district, and you can probably combine that in bullet point 2.
Sorry,
Or-
can you say that again?
You could probably take the last bullet point and either put it under the title in parentheses, saying,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
you know,
Yep.
are only made by property that was hooked up in the sewer, to the sewer district, or live in the sewer district, whatever, right?
Live in, not necessarily
in.
hooked up.
You know, so that way, then you can just have the other 2 points.
Yep, got it.
Because in that way, it eliminates that bullet point, makes it a little less wordy, and we eliminate some words for you.
Okay. All right. That's the bill. Revenue, right? So where do we get our money from? Tax levy, state aid, local receipts. If you don't like the little boxes, you can just ignore them. Free cash, current value, what it's made of. Simple as I can make it. The 2 things not used in operating budget. I mean, I guess I could have included sewer betterments, but I don't have a number from that from ALG, so I didn't. Okay. Current budget situation. I do not have town A and B budgets in this yet. I just had the town budget from the most recent numbers before a B budget was presented. So I will have an A and B, and you'll see what I did with the school, A and B, yeah.
I don't like the word need. To fund similar services this year, I don't like that.
It's a projected need specifically, but projected ask.
It's an ask. It's not a need is the wrong word.
It's just the projected budget, you're right, Adam, that's the word. Yep,
Projected and presented.
was, is,
I would say would be, because it or would have been, or might have been, or could have been, or mythical beast could have wandered.
trying not to put our thumb on anything and just state what's being presented by each entity, right, okay?
Would-
That's
would
the
be.
idea.
You could prob, I was gonna say, you could probably get rid of was, and just put last year's town's operating budget, period.
That's
On
fine.
the first bullet point.
Let's not worry about one word.
Take
Christine
that
wants to
under
save words.
advisement.
Or be specific and say fiscal year X,
Yeah,
Y, Z.
and then instead of that is.
Always better to
increase,
be
that
specific.
That would be an
There's lots of
increase.
words.
So if you change the would be here, that should be a would be there.
Yes, you're right. Okay. Minuteman?
Do you want me to give you the updated numbers for the town?
Not this second.
And the numbers you presented for the town do not include the debt exclusion, this does. This assessment.
No, I used the number you gave me that did have the debt exclusion in it. You sent me two numbers and I used the one that does.
That includes the 3.6 million includes the debt exclusion. The town's 36 million or 40 million does not include the town's debt exclusion.
Okay. I thought I grabbed the right number from your email you sent me. We'll pick one,
No, this just goes back to, do we think it should be?
whether it's all in the debt exclusions in there or not, but
Yeah.
I don't know. This is what the assessment, this is the projected assessment, period, not what it would be, because unless we're going to vote it down,
Correct.
this is what it's going to be. Okay, so budget A. And we can change his to would be. And then budget B. And again, can change it from is to would be.
I think we're stronger if we say would be, because that's then accurate. It's
Yep.
not taking a position.
Yeah, and that is the point of these is not to be taking a position when we're presenting this.
I imagine this won't be popular, but what about putting the A and B budgets on the same slide? So you're seeing everything in one place for the entities?
I think as a printout, it's works, not, I don't know, it's up to y'all. I don't. It becomes a lot of numbers then. So,
I just know if I was reading it, I'd be switching. If they're on like back sides of the pages, flipping it over or holding the two next to each other.
okay.
But
All right, so we can, yeah, consider that, especially when we get the town one as well. So budget drivers specifically as stated by town and schools. Not taking a position, just these are the things that they've identified.
So when I saw these slides earlier, I had a bit of a confusion about my feelings about it. The Minuteman assessment here is included under town. When we
Because
discussed the town budget a few slides earlier, that is exclusive of the Minuteman assessment. And I know why we talk about it here, it just doesn't make the information line up with what we've been talking about previously.
So maybe the town and Minuteman should be on the same slide with a total
Or just give Minuteman its own bullet point.
I would make
It's
Minuteman its
a-
own. It's its own on the ALG spreadsheet, no?
Yeah,
It's its own,
Okay.
it's its own article at town meeting.
Yep. Just kind of think of them as a split budget, but yeah.
What
No, I
other
get what
items
you're
stand on their own on the ALG spreadsheet and at town
town
meeting?
operations, AB, Minuteman.
And capital is its own article as well.
Oh, you're talking about article, I thought he said on the ALG spreadsheet.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of things like Middlesex, but those are all part of each
Those are all in the
entity's
town
budget.
operating
Okay.
budget. But there's back to what Christine put up that David had done. That has their Article 4, which is the town operating budget in the warrant. Article 5 is town capital expenses. Article 6 is the first year of debt service. And then Article 7 is the AB assessment, including debt service rolled into it, because our percent of debt service changes along with our, the allocation formula. And then Article 8 is the Minuteman assessment, again, inclusive of debt service. Yes?
The question is, was the intent, Christine, to show that the town has been absorbing the Minuteman assessment increases?
In their budget. That was what I was going for.
I don't think
Yes.
the data actually plays out that way.
So when we take in money and we do our 60-30 split, the Minuteman assessment is paid out of the 30, right? 60-40.
Well, okay, so if you look at, because the current ALG model only does 23, 24, 25, in 23, the town operating budget was 35%. We spent 65% on education. That's inclusive of AB and Minuteman. And it's about that split for all these years. Unfortunately, this data doesn't go much further back. If you take excluded debt into account, the town starts declining in percent a little faster, only because the town has paid off some of its excluded debt. And the school, the Minuteman debt especially, is going to go up a little still. So it's not, if you're going to go 33-66 split, the town's getting more than 33% by either estimate.
Sure.
Well, so the Minuteman isn't inherently coming out of the town. It's not coming out of their 33%. They're 1/3.
Is that what we're talking about, a 33-66 split?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
No? I feel like maybe I'm way off track. Am I someone?
I think we need to get away from this whole split conversation. I think the budgets need to stand on their own.
I'm with that. Can we move Minuteman out of the
Sure.
town list? Thank you. I have a question here. The number that appears on the ballot, is that the amount above the normal Prop 2.5 plus growth levy limit?
It is a whole dollar value singularly written by the select board, period. It will say exactly $6.6,600,000, and that's all it will say.
So that is above the,
It's inclusive of.
no,
It is.
it's exclusive of.
It is,
In-
it is over and above, 100% above
Yeah.
the previous year's levy limit.
The previous, right, yes.
So it's not the dollar, it's the dollar
still
increase in the levy
confusing.
limit.
The previous year's
exceeds-
levy limit, as in,
Okay,
You-
it is the amount that I was reading that flipped around. It's the dollars above the 2.5 that the voters are
Correct.
being asked.
I don't think that's
prove.
accurate, and this is from the DLS website, this example.
I hear you, it's not making sense to me, so
I think the 6.6 is 6.6, period. It's not 6.6 plus 2.5, right?
It is. It's 6.6 plus 2.5.
No, it's not, because the levy limit is already
Now you're arguing
guaranteed.
with yourself.
The levy
Yeah.
limit is already guaranteed. So you take last year's number, you multiply it by 1.025, and that's your new levy limit. That's independent of that doesn't matter what happens in the override. If we then turn around and say, we're adding 6.6 million, whatever number we vote on is over and above what automatically happens as a result of Prop 2.5.
Okay. That's what I thought I was saying, which says to me that I am not understanding this clearly enough. Yeah, sure.
So Jason is right, but another way to think of that is last year's levy limit times 1.025 plus 6.6 million.
Yeah.
Right. So the levy limit for this year, if it were 100 million, voters would approve an override of 5 million. The community can now levy 105 million. In addition, the base for the next year is 105 million, and now you add your
I've got
Prop
it.
2.5 to that to get your levy limit for the following year.
I've got where she's missing it. It's the last line. So it's voters approve $5 million. That becomes the new current levy limit, the base for calculating next year's tax levy limit. So this year, we're at 100 million.
Oh, no, I understand how all of this works. I don't understand why that top sentence confuses me about how this all works.
Because it is approved in a given year, right? So we're approving for fiscal year '25, right? So in fiscal year '25, we're adding $6.6 million. The levy limit has already magically turned over on July 1st.
Yep.
To be the new number, which was FY24 times 1.025 plus new growth.
Yep.
That's the new levy limit. Then we're adding 6.6 million.
Yes, I understand all of this. That top sentence doesn't mean that to me, and I want to know why so that I can help other people avoid the confusion I'm in.
The important line is the base for calculating next year's levy limit.
It's really just that top bullet point.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's written wrong, I'm just saying that if my brain is stuck on it.
How would you describe the levy limit for this year?
Well, how about a dollar increase above the Prop 2.5? Roland, go
So
ahead.
let me see if I'm following, and I'll give you simpler numbers. So we got a $100 million budget. We add 2.5% for the Prop 2.5, which gets us to 102.5 million. Then we add the 5 on top of that in this example, we come to 107.5.
Oh, I understand the math.
Okay.
I understand this.
That's how I think the math should be kind of maybe laid out in a slide. saying,
sentence.
That sentence makes me feel like I don't understand the math, even though I do.
I don't know what to do about that.
Okay, I'll come back to it.
Okay. That's what an override is.
I'm sorry, hold on.
Yep, going back.
There was something else about, okay, creates a permanent increase in the levy limit base, sounds very technical to me.
Okay.
How about something to the effect of, that's the level that the 2.5 increases from? We haven't used the term levy limit base before. We haven't used the term levy limit before. We talk about tax levy at the beginning, but not levy limit.
Yep.
I think you just moved the word base instead of levy limit.
No. Her issue is that this is if we're now introducing levy limit.
It's a
As a
term we
term.
haven't described.
Okay. I will,
Would it help overall to have a glossary at the end so that there's the definitions?
we could, but my hope is that this is the glossary, right?
That's true.
The idea is that you could read each page and go, got it.
That's
You know,
true.
I didn't get it, now I get it. Now I understand. Now at least everybody's starting with the same understanding of what this process looks like.
The town warrant has the glossary in it.
Yeah, no,
I wouldn't count on people reading it.
Well, it's there, so.
I mean, it could be a dollar increase in the tax levy approved by the voters that exceeds 2.5%. We can just go back to tax levy because that's what we were using before and it's accurate.
How about next year's increase starts from that base?
You want just base? Is that what you were wanting? Or tax levy base? Sure. Okay.
Hold on, and the bottom you also have levy limit.
I do. I don't like rewriting DLS's words, but, okay. Okay.
I think it needs to be a ballot override question. Unless Prop 2.5 ballot question is the formal.
It is a ballot question
Yeah, the Prop 2.5.
related to Prop 2.5. The question is, honestly, by the time we go and give this to anybody, will the select board have already voted and put this as a question? In which case, I can just lose that step because it will have already happened.
It's worth having the process in place.
I
Can I
expect
save
that
it
we'll
instead?
vote on the ballot question next meeting.
Next week?
Next meeting, which is the 26th.
Is
That's
there-
just an expectation on my part. We don't have the agenda yet.
Is there a special name for these type of ballot question? Because if I were to describe it, I would call it an override or a Prop 2.5 override ballot question.
Or an operational override.
You could put in all those adjectives, right? Those are all correct. Obviously, you didn't have an operational override, but I think you could cut out any of them. You're right. I think you could just say override here because we use exclusion for debt, and so override is for the operating.
Thank you. What if we pass A and Foxborough passes B?
Then they have to go back and redo the budget.
Okay, because you mentioned below if either rejects the B budget, but not what if
It
one of
was-
them rejects the A budget?
I actually, at last minute, tried to put together like a flow chart, and it's more complicated than I thought it was going to be because I didn't know what happened if we got to the point that, say, you know, if they reject and they go back and renegotiate, is there an opportunity for another ballot question? And I believe there is, but I don't know that we want to open that can of worms in this because we're trying to make it simple.
Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair. I'm just trying to answer questions. In this particular instance, if the ballot question were to fail, we could go back with another special town meeting. That's not what I would expect would happen. In the interval between the ballot and town meeting, the school committee would have to vote a lower budget. And then the motions presented at both towns' town meetings would be the B budgets.
Yes, and if those failed in either town,
Oh,
then
if, I don't think the B budgets probably would fail, but if any budgets fail, then my understanding of the process in state law is they get a one special town meeting redo. That doesn't have to do with the override because Foxborough doesn't have an override,
Right.
but just for the school assessment. If one town votes down the school assessment, then you get a one special town meeting redo. If that still can't come to an accord, there's a combined town meeting between all the towns in the district, in this case, two.
Thank you for the help.
yeah. I would not vote for the B budget. And in this slide, I would just have some average numbers, tax bill implications,
You can
because
pull them.
that's the bottom line for a lot of these people.
You can pull them straight out of the ALG spreadsheet.
Yeah, I just haven't done it yet.
Actually, you can't.
Oh.
I tried to pull them out of the spreadsheet, and what I found is both the A budget and the B budget were the same, and I can't believe that the tax bill, average bill, is the same in the two. So somebody didn't basically take their spreadsheet and say, okay, recalculate.
So we'll get those numbers on there.
The one that you shared over the weekend?
The one I'm looking at is not the same.
Oh, good.
Maybe they updated.
Well, it's, versions kept changing, so it is possible that,
Okay, then it's fixed.
Okay.
if you have any trouble, Christine, finding a version with it different, I'll get it to you and I'll check what's uploaded.
Okay. So that's the basic idea, to get everybody on a level playing field as much as possible with what we're looking at, not how we feel about it. I mean, you know.
Scott?
Thank you. I thought that was well put together. And as you were presenting that, I was trying to think to myself, what did I feel could be in there that might be helpful? I don't know if it's, what my thought, I don't know if this is allowed to be in there, but everybody has put a lot of work into going from the original budget to the now A budget, and then put a lot of thought into what the B budget is. And not everybody's in town has paid attention to what's going on. And that's the whole purpose of this. And going through it, looking through it, what doesn't come across to me is that there was work done to go from the original budget to the A budget that's out there currently, and then to present the B budget. So if I was doing this and I had full control over it and didn't matter what people thought of what I did, what I would have done is on the slides where you show the A budget, I would very simply have like a 3-box grid underneath highlighting maybe a couple changes from the first original to the second to the third. And so I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I'll just finish my thought, please, Jason. And like, for example, like in the school budget going from whatever they had originally to 25 teachers being cut on the A and then 90 teachers being cut on the B, because I think that would, because if you're just looking at numbers by themselves, everybody's going to take the lower number. And I think this might, through education, basically have the B budget passed. Because you're just looking at numbers, you're not understanding what's really behind them, and they may not pay attention to it. So I'm done.
I don't think we can. I think that it could be argued if we did something like that, we would be tipping our hand towards a desired outcome. I think that people, we can host something here where people, we invite the public to discuss the process and what we feel, you know, should happen and what each entity has done. We can direct them to where they can get the information you're talking about for all pieces. But I don't know how we present what you're saying without making some sort of tip of the hat, you know.
Even if it's factual, like you take 3 bullet points from each that actually were done. That's not opinion, that's fact.
Yeah. It's slightly, I mean, there's,
But if you apply the facts in all areas, like 3.
We can ask legal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I agree. And again, you're right. We may legally have to present numbers, period. But here's what presenting numbers, period, does. We're showing cost. We're not showing benefit. We're not showing impact. We're not showing effectiveness. We're not showing trade-offs. We're missing half of the equation. Now, picking those impacts, you had actually some lists that were supplied by the selectmen and the school committee of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, okay? So in some respects, if we can outline the budget drivers, then I think we can be objective and neutral and say, I'm not taking a position on how you should vote. But if we're looking at the difference between the A budget and the B budget, and we're talking about the difference between 25 FTEs and 90 FTEs, that's data. But that also then begins to get the, oh, okay, now I see what the trade-off is.
cheers.
That's not actually data, because that is not set yet. That is what that's what the superintendent and the town manager have stated are probable outcomes, but that's not set. So therefore, you can't state that as fact, because this is a bottom line budget. Both of those entities are able to redo their budgets as they see fit. So while it might be, to take the two possible extremes. One extreme is, if you don't pass my budget, I have to lay off half of my employees. They're welcome to say that. It may not be based on any fact, but that may be something that has been stated. The other extreme is, if you don't pass this budget, then, planes will start falling out of the sky. These are, while by no means do I ascribe to either entity a misleading statement, this is absolutely fungible, and therefore you cannot state that this is the outcome that will occur in the case of a failed budget. So I would not be for putting any of the possible results down. I feel that's way too much like putting the thumb on the scale.
So the point here, what you're discussing would fit very well into our point of view, which we have not done. This is purely meant to be an educational about what's an override, how did we get where we are? Adam.
Sorry, could you put that slide up again with the increased costs?
While you do that, it occurs to me that we don't anywhere explain what the A and B budgets are. What they're about.
I think it's TMI. Again, I would break this down into this nutshell, this slide right here. We have $11 million in increased costs this year, over and above. The school has proposed to cut, $2 million from their budget to try to accommodate this. The town is proposing to cut whatever number from their budget to try to accommodate this. That leaves us a balance of $6.6 million. We're requesting that from you, the taxpayer. Sorry, I stated that as though we're selling this, but my point is, those are the facts. And those are the facts that I think people want to know in order to make the decision. I don't know. That's how I see it.
Jason.
Can you go to the very second to last slide? One more. I would love to see a slide after this, right near the end, that basically just says, an override is an increase in the authority to tax. Budgets determine actual tax bills.
Sure.
Is that an opinion?
No, because an override is the authority.
I know.
Increases the authority.
So I'm gonna share a little philosophy here where I'm coming from so that it's not just heckling. A friend of mine and I teach courses on the title of which are Measuring What Matters. And this is something that happens in business, in nonprofits, in government agencies. And again, if we see our job as, I'm just going to give you a number, period. That's my job. We are not providing information that people can use to make decisions. We don't have to tell them how to make the decision. They're smart people. They'll decide using a lot of different factors. But we haven't done our job of providing them with, you can do A, you can do B. If you do A, here's what happens. If you do B, here's what happens. One of the impacts of A and B is here's your tax bill. You'll want to know that. That's a number. But guess what? The difference between A and B is, oh, by the way, X number of full-time equivalents. And again, is that an approximate number? Sure, so is the snowfall next year. But we're going to budget for snow plowing too. So you know what? Give or take, 90 teachers may be an approximation. If it only turns out to be 88, that's still a big number and people need to understand. Oh, okay. I may not be able to afford the tax bill, but I see what you're talking about.
I feel like that's the position of the budgeting entities to
Yeah,
tell that
I'm-
story.
I was going to ask for a sense of the committee on this. I don't think we should be
Definitely
arguing
not our
for
place.
details.
Because
on one
we
way
have
or the
no
other.
say in what happens if these things pass or don't pass.
I think we argue the financial viability, and it's the various entities' jobs to convince people that that's what should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Finance Committee voted, or not voted, we discussed and came up with a number to present to ALG, which to us covers the A budgets for both entities. So our position leans A budget, and we can say that here, and we can say that, until it is on a ballot question, and then we can't go out and say that without violating campaign finance, which is why there are PACs and there are other entities who can say that, and the town can say it, and the schools can say it. And our job is to advise. We advise the select board, we advise the schools, we advise the LG. And now with this, I'd like to advise the people in the process. We can point them to a list of places they can get information from that has the details that we would like them to have and on both sides. But we can't go out to the public and talk in favor of or against the question. And if we're seen to be doing so, we're violating campaign finance law, law, not finance, but law or whatever.
Adam?
To that point, is it appropriate or inappropriate for us to state the reasoning why we have told our ALG representatives to support a $6.6 million override? Go ahead.
Adam, in what capacity? You as an individual?
No,
As
us as a
committee?
finance committee.
In our meetings, we can say what we want.
Sure, right. So can we not
We cannot-
restate what we've already said in our public meetings? The same as if
No.
let's say we all took a vote to,
We cannot go to the we cannot, thank you. We cannot go to the Council on Aging and do a finance committee presentation saying, yes, you should support this override.
no, I'm not saying that we should go tell people they should support the override. We can make a statement why we supported the override.
Jason?
Two things. We can say anything we want in a public meeting. For example, I can say right now, I would like the town members to vote to approve the override of $6.6 million. And I will. I just did. We can say that all we want. What we cannot do is we cannot then turn around and say in public, outside of the public meeting, that we are advocating passage of this, because unless we run it past the OCPF or whatever it is, so that it does not seem like a campaign-style thing, we cannot say it. So we can say whatever we want in public meeting. Outside of this, the only thing that we can do is we can say, I refer you to the meeting of X date, or I refer you to this one sanitized piece of paper that we run past the Office of Legal whatever that says that in its deliberations, the Finance Committee has recommended a $6.6 million override.
That one's more in line with what I'm thinking.
I would not then turn around, I would absolutely not then turn around and say, the reason why we supported it is because we love the fact that the school came down $2 million and the town came down $1.4 million, and we believe that we've done everything we possibly can, and anything more than this would qualify as pain. We cannot say any of that outside of public meeting.
No, but if we issued a document that said something, the Finance Committee on X date
And I would be very careful.
wrote this statement, then can you not present that in public
You
anytime,
can
anywhere?
say, you can
You can't
repeat that.
present it.
You can refer to that document, and I would absolutely request, Madam Chair, that if we do such a thing, that we follow the guidance that was given at the training, and we submit whatever we write up to the state to validate that what we've said is 100% accurate. And again, let me restate, I am asking the public to support the $6.6 million override. Does not mean I currently support either budget at this time.
Right.
Which is why I wanted to make the distinction that an override is an authorization. It is not the actual taxation.
I think that's key here. We are not and have not agreed voted on support for a specific budget. We have not seen the details on the school budget to have made any sort of decision about that. So discussion of budget details within this presentation, apart from everything else, is not appropriate at this point in time. And I think I'm comfortable that it's not what this presentation should be about. But I do think we want to say what the town A budget versus the B budget is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also would state that if you do feel that it would be difficult to present this without tipping one way or another, then don't volunteer to present it should the opportunity arise.
So question, let's say that we come up with a presentation very factual about the impacts of voting one way or the other, and a member of the public says, well, what does the finance committee think of this? How can a finance committee respond to that? Can they say,
The
well, I
finance
can't
committee-
respond to that, or you refer to a date or a meeting or a document, right? Say, for that
At
opinion,
this date, the
please
finance
see-
committee recommended an override. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. This is very slippery slope.
Christine, do you have what you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Do you-
Yeah, no, I hope everybody realizes I'm trying to get ahead of the fact that so many people are getting information from Facebook, and it's not good information. And a lot of people have said, look, I need the Cliff Notes. I don't even understand the process, and I don't have time to go watch a 2.5-hour meeting here or 2.5-hour meeting there. So if we can meet people where they are and at least help them define the process, that it's a starting point.
Thank you very much for doing this, Christine.
There are other groups out there advocating various stances on it. We are not, it's not just falling to us. So Christine took a good stance on just what are the mechanics, what do they mean in this situation? You have everything you need from us.
I think so.
I'm
Yeah,
hoping we finalize next time? Just
Yeah, let's
something
finalize next time. I'll watch through what we said and clean it all up and hopefully.
Thank you.
And it's not an open meeting law violation for you to send it out saying, please review for the next meeting.
Sure, yeah.
Yes,
no, I'll
but don't
definitely do that.
reply all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next up is just general committee business. We do not have any minutes to review. Looking at liaison reports next. Anyone? Liaison reports.
There was a question that came in as to whether the Finance Committee was going to appoint a liaison to the Economic Development Team. So is that on tonight's agenda or a future agenda?
That is a discussion to be had.
Okay.
Did you have one?
I mean, the schools are just continuing to present their departments' budgets and how they got where they are. Do you remember anything specific? I watched the meeting, but I don't think there's anything prescient. Go ahead.
School budget Saturday is this Saturday, the 10th.
That too.
Starting at 8:30 a.m. I would very much like as many people to show up as
Yes,
possible.
who is going to be there? Because I need to post an agenda if we're going to have a quorum, which we do.
Is it possible to leave like midday?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, I can be there, I can be
Wait.
for the morning.
Okay. I will post an agenda then saying that we will be having a meeting then. You might hear a whisper, I'm looking at you, Jason, that project is being worked on for what is now being referred to as 17 Woodbury. There is a federal earmark specifically for renovations there. There was some money put aside from ARPA. The project will only use that money. The idea is that it will be a 3-season building, uninsulated, with some outdoor space that people can use. It will also provide access to a bathroom from the outside, which will be very helpful for people using the playground. And the porch will be set up so you could have a little poetry readings or something. Yes.
Is this the dilapidated building behind Town Hall?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So this project is moving forward, and again, none of this money is coming out of the budget.
It's strictly coming out of ARPA from any
Strictly
other-
out of ARPA and federal earmark.
Yep, the federal earmark, I obviously have nothing against the ARPA money. I find it absolutely infuriating that we're spending any money that we have on a building that we've not had a use for the 40 years that we've owned it, and suddenly we want to work on it. Again, I would have preferred they come with a full plan, but apparently they are. I would love for them to come for a full plan before they spend a single dime on it.
I will direct you towards the slides. They do have what I think is a full plan. And it is economically feasible within the means. They are specifically not heating it.
Okay.
I
They're using ARPA money.
Yes.
I attended last night's selectmen's meeting and saw the full plan, so that you can get it, my guess is, from the minutes.
I will watch the remainder of the YouTube video that I did not get through today.
I attended another meeting about it. I'm happy to answer.
And if I may, ARPA funds do not expire in 2023. They must be committed by 2026. Thank you.
In case you noticed some concerns about that.
Question?
Yes,
I didn't see the video. They're putting a bathroom in,
they're putting in 2 bathrooms.
so I would assume those bathrooms would have to be heated.
There will be minimal heating for them. There's 2 bathrooms and a kitchenette. That is all that will be heated. The space will be uninsulated and unheated otherwise. And I have nothing else to report in any of my oh, I'm sorry. We got a formal assessment from Minuteman, just to keep you up to date. It came in less than initially projected, down to 3.6 million from, I think it was 3.7, from a higher number. Yeah, down to 3.6 from 3.7. So that's a nice little,
Something.
yeah, a tiny bit of glimmer of hope there. Okay, our next meeting is on Saturday. We have kept a hold on this location for next Tuesday. Do we want to plan to meet next Tuesday to go over the school budget that will have been discussed? We're also having an ALG meeting. Is that on Monday, Jason?
Yes.
On Monday. So we could discuss the school budget and the ALG meeting Monday.
That's a good time to have a meeting. I don't think I can make it next Tuesday, though.
Okay, that's our regularly planned Tuesday. Who can come?
I can be there.
Okay, I will put together a meeting for that. Hopefully it won't be very long and we can hopefully finalize that presentation. Okay, anything else?
The school meeting on Saturday, is that here or is that somewhere else?
The admin building, right?
I presume. I've been
So-
assuming it's the admin
I
building.
believe it's the admin building.
The one next to Parker Damon?
Oh, okay.
If
Okay.
you
They
have,
usually have the car washes?
Yes, where they usually have the car washes.
Yeah,
how many of us RSVP'd for the meeting?
I did not.
I did.
Okay, good. So they won't put,
They won't feed you. It's fine.
they were talking about having space for us. I'll just make sure they know.
All right. I'll
And
take up a lot of space.
Dave, you said you can be there too? Saturday? Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Greg, will you please make a motion?
As the rookie, I would like to move we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, abstentions, no. Thank you. See you all on Saturday.